All right. Hello. Welcome to Git and GitHub Fundamentals. I am Jessica, also known as Meta Dev Girl, and I am very excited today. There's a lot that we're going to be diving into, but this workshop is primarily focused on being able to use Git as well as GitHub for managing your personal projects, as well as for collaborating on projects. I'm going to start out with the very basics as far as getting Git set up, how we can use it for our personal projects on our computer. Then we're going to be hopping over into GitHub. On GitHub, we will actually take a look at the different options that we have for creating a repository, which we'll learn about what those are pretty soon here. And then we'll also take some time to look at what it will look like if you want to contribute to a project that you do not have direct access to, i.e., if you're interested in Hacktoberfest, which is going on right now at the time that we're running this workshop, then you may be wanting to contribute to an open source project. And so that's going to require you to know a couple of extra steps as far as working with Git and GitHub. So we're going to be covering that array of information. And I first want to start by saying that if you are new to Git, if this is something that you're just trying out for the first time, give yourself grace. Even if you're not new to Git, give yourself grace because it takes a lot to really learn Git. It has a lot of layers to it. I guess I'll say that. And so it can be very difficult to kind of get started with it if it's something that you've never seen before, if you're not familiar with working from the command line. These are things that I understand from firsthand experience. And so my goal whenever I am teaching these types of workshops, especially with version control, is to get you acclimated, to help you understand the actual breakdown, the fundamental concepts that are going to help you using version control. And those will be skills that you can build on. Okay. So take a deep breath. We're going to do a lot today, but I don't want it to be overwhelming. I just want to make sure that you have a full lay of the land as far as the basics you're going to need, like I said, to work on your own projects, but also to start doing some open source contributions as well. So I'm very excited about this, and we're going to be going ahead and diving in. So for me, I am going to, let's see. Let's make sure I have my screen up. Okay. So I am going to be showing you all quite a few things in this workshop. Now, previously I had done a podcast episode where I talked about setting up your profile, setting up your README, and I also covered setting up a special repository that you can use for your personal website as well. However, I think that the materials that I recorded for that is a little choppy. So the audio is not that great. So I'm going to be redoing all of those steps as well today. So you are definitely in for a treat if you're here for this workshop. So let me know if you have questions in real time or if you have questions just watching this recording back. You can go to let's see, I'll pull up the website. Brown Tech Bay, I am happy you are here. You can go to metadevgirl.com / here, we'll pull it over here. You can go to metadevgirl.com and that'll be / Git and GitHub Fundamentals. Why? Yeah, there we go. So here on this page, again, that's metadevgirl.com / git and GitHub fundamentals. You will be able to see the recording. You'll be able to see this live. It will be available. It's already available now and basically will be available immediately following this workshop as well. So you can come back to this at any point and I will be making updates here. So feel free to ask questions wherever you're watching. If you're watching on Twitch, if you're watching on YouTube, or if you are watching from the site, then you can just put comments on the page directly here. And the other thing to note is that I will be adding I will be adding more resources on this page. So all of the code that we'll be using, all those snippets will be there. I'll go back and put a lot more details into it as well. So that's something that you can definitely look forward to as a follow up to this class. And then one other thing I want to show you as well, we did a previous workshop earlier this month that is a tie in to this one. So if you want to get into a little bit more about the command line, some of the different basic commands that I'm going to be using. I have a bunch of those here in the command line fundamentals workshop. So that is also here on metadevgrow.com. Feel free to just have that as a reference if you want to. You can check into it, and there's other resources. And in this workshop, I covered basic shell commands, but I also covered how to customize your terminal. So if you're interested in that, definitely check that out as well. All right. So I think I have all the things up just so I can see. Anybody that has any questions, I want to make sure I'm available. Okay. Okay. So let's go ahead and dive in. Now, I am here on GitHub. I have had my GitHub profile for, let's see how long. I always have to wonder, and it's longer than I have been it's longer than I expect every time I look back at it. I think I need to make it a little bit tinier. Yeah. So, 2014. Oh my gosh. My GitHub account is gonna be 10 years old next year. I have to do something to celebrate that. So, for me, this is sentimental because my experience with version control started very early on in my experience, becoming a developer and moving into software engineering. So for me, it was around 2014 that I started as an intern at a coding boot camp. I didn't even really know what tech and coding was at the time. I was a mechanical engineering student back then. So I definitely had the STEM background, but I was not very fond of programming at the time just because I had a really uncomfortable experience learning how to program in a university setting. So I did really good in the class as far as a grade, but I didn't feel like I knew anything. So I was like, I'll never do that again. And then when I ended up working at the coding boot camp, I just saw like a more approachable way to coding. And I also saw that, folks were able to pretty much build their careers by taking workshops and taking boot camps. So I was sitting in on some classes, and what I experienced was sitting in, I think it was probably a PHP or it could have been a Ruby class. I can't remember. I was probably Ruby at the time. I remember sitting in on a Ruby workshop, and I was just like, wow, this makes so much sense to me. And it was funny because I had that experience after completely writing off programming, saying I will never program ever again. I sat in that class and it clicked for me. I was able to follow everything that was going on, and that really was a pivotal moment for me in my career. So that was around 2014. That was actually in 2014 because I remember I was 24 at the time. The program that I was going through like caps at 24, so I just squoze in, and it was amazing because it really has catapulted. My experience in development. But to really get into more of the Git and GitHub side of things, one of the very first things I did after I got so interested in this is I started I was allowed to take workshops for free. And so I remember I took a workshop. It used to be called Build a Dynamic Website. I took this workshop, and the instructor happens to be someone that I got to work with as well. He was an amazing mentor and guide for me over the years. But I remember he was teaching. And so one of the things that he taught us in that workshop was how to use version control. And I mean, this is the type of workshop where most people that were in the class with me, they were actually working full time in their careers, and they were taking this as like basically their company allowed them to take these classes. And so some people were interested, but they weren't really fully invested. It was something that we did 2 nights a week. a lot of times people had work, they had life, they had other things going on, but me, I was all in. So whenever we had exercises for that program, I always participated and made sure I used all of the exercises. And whenever we were given any type of guidance around how to work with version control, I thought that that was super important as well. And so I really kind of stuck to it early on. It was a lot to take on initially, but I definitely stuck to it early on. And I cannot say enough good things about getting started with version control when you're early. Now, it doesn't matter where you are at this point. Now is the time to start if you are in the works of becoming a developer or if you are already working in some type of development role. So yeah, my very early, let's see if I can find it. My very early contributions, my very early projects that I worked on were a part of that workshop. And so for me, like I said, this is sentimental because I can see pretty much my entire history as a developer through GitHub. So that's a little side note, but just so you can understand, I've been working with Git for a very long time, and there's still a lot of things that I don't know, but I'm very comfortable with the tool and I'm very comfortable with figuring out new things in the tool. And that's what I would want for you as in taking this workshop. Not only that you'll become comfortable with some of the different commands that you can use and how the tool works, but I want you to feel um like you have the power to go forth and pursue learning the tool deeper from the core fundamentals. So that's what I'm going to try to focus on for you all. And again, at any point in time you have questions, let me know live or let me know in the comments on our page on the website, and I will be happy to get back to you all. But this is definitely going to empower us for the rest of this month. Today I was live working on a project for an open source project. And I know a lot more people want to participate in Hacktoberfest. So hopefully after this, you will feel encouraged to go and pursue whatever projects that you're interested in. All right. So today, our agenda pretty much consists of first, we're going to be jumping into a little bit about version control, breaking down what it is, what it isn't. And then we are going to get into setting up Git. After we get into that, we will be looking at working with Git locally, making different repositories and using different commands. After we work on some local repositories, local meaning hosted on our own computer, we will hop over to GitHub. And from there, with GitHub, we will start to set up our projects on GitHub, link those together, and then we'll also look at what it looks like to work on someone else's repository. Okay. So it's a mouthful, but oh, and then the other things that I am going to do as a part of this, I will be demoing how you can set up this profile so that you can have your readme here on the profile and you can tell more about yourself. And I will also be setting up I will also be talking about how to set up your personal domain on GitHub. So GitHub does host a web page for you if you use a very special repository name, and so I'm going to show you all how to set that up as well. All right, so let's talk about Git first because Git is really a big part of our lives as developers. And so if I was to go to git dot, I think it's .scm, yeah, git-scm.com. This is the tool Git. So we're going to be looking into Git. We're going to be understanding how to run different commands, and you will be able to install this tool whether you are on a Mac or a PC, or even Linux. Now, for me, I'm on a Mac today, so everything that I'm demonstrating is going to be showcasing how things are working on Mac, but most of it is pretty much going to be straightforward and self-explanatory if you're following along. And then let me make sure I have my other notes here. Give me a second. Do, 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 do. Um, Oh, okay, here we go. All right. So, first thing I want to make sure I cover is who this is and isn't for. So, with this workshop, like I said, if you don't have any experience using version control, or if you have some experience but you're really not comfortable with all the different commands and how it is working, this is going to be a perfect workshop for you. Also, if you have never worked with an open source tool, if you've never done open source contributions or you've never contributed to a project where you needed to use branches or forking, then this is also going to be a workshop for you. Now, if you're already comfortable with all those things, then this may not be the material for you. But feel free to stick around if you just think that you're kind of in the middle and you're not sure. But just want to make sure I set those expectations. This is a beginner friendly workshop. So, the first thing I want to talk about is version control. So, what is version control, right? Um, for us, we have the power to manage our projects, manage the state of our projects, keep up with the history of our projects by using version control. Okay. So, a common tool that you can think about that is not Git, but also has some type of version control to it would be if I was to think about Google Docs. So, if I go into Google Docs and I go into, say, here, I'm going to come over here. This one? Yeah. Okay. So yeah, if I was to go into Google Docs and I was to create a new document, right? If someone else also has access to that document, first of all, I could share access to them and then they could work on the document and I could also work on the document. And the system itself actually reconciles any differences in what, I write in a document versus someone else. And then there is also a history. So if I, for some reason, wanted to revert a document back to a previous state, Google Docs also has a history that I can go and look into, and they allow me to revert back to old versions. So this is the idea that we're thinking about when it comes to version control. Now, it is definitely going to be key for collaboration. So, for us as developers, we have to work together with teams of other developers all the time. And it's really important for us to be able to incorporate changes from multiple sources, as well as to resolve conflicts whenever we have changes from multiple sources that are not easily able to be resolved in the system. We also will be able to track our projects with version control. So in this case, I'm thinking about managing the different project versions. One of the biggest ways that this is super helpful is when you are working on a project, inevitably bugs get introduced into our projects because we're all human and no one is perfect. Excuse me. And so when it comes to being able to track our project, being able to make those revisions, being able to um, revert to previous forms prior to us actually, causing any type of issues or errors, that is also going to be really, really helpful. And then another thing is going to be redundancy of our data. Okay. So this is more of a system based idea, but you want to think about the fact that when you have a code base, and this is the code that you are using for your project, for your site, for your application, you want to make sure that you can, as much as possible, protect yourself against losing that code, right? Because if for some reason right now I have a project on my laptop and it's running and my laptop blows up for whatever reason, now I don't have access to that code anymore. And think about even if you have something hosted, usually when you have projects hosted, when you have projects online, they're live on the internet. That still just means that they live on a computer somewhere, right? And so if that only source of your code is the code that is deployed on that particular computer, or even maybe it's deployed on that computer and it's deployed on my laptop, um, if anything happens to those devices, then you have the potential of losing, all of your work. And so that is something that version control also helps us with. And that will be a little bit more for us in particular. It'll be a little bit more in the type of version control that we're going to be using. So, there are two types of version controls that are the main ones I would focus on. So, one is going to be called centralized version control, and the other is going to be distributed version control. So, the idea of centralized, you can think of a library. So, with a library, when you go to the library, you have books, right? All of the books are in that particular location. And if I wanted to read a specific book, I can go to the library, I can check that book out, right? And if I have that book checked out, then no one else has that book checked out, right? Only one person has it checked out. I can if we think of this in a file sense, I could check out this book, make any changes. Don't change library books, but make any changes that I wouldn't want to make, and then I could check that book back in. And so this is the idea that I think of when it comes to centralized version control. So this is going to be code that is hosted on a central server where a client will check out a file, they will make changes to the file, and then they will check those changes back in. Okay. And this is different from distributed version control. So with distributed version control, in this case, you will have code that is hosted by multiple clients. When I think of a client, I'm pretty much referring to a computer, right? So, with centralized version control, there's one main computer source, maybe, and then as a particular individual, I'm a client on my computer. I can check out a file, I can work on that file, and I can check that file back in. On the flip side, if I am to be on a distributed system, then I will have a copy of the code, and you, as another member of the team, will also have a full copy of the code, as well as on the server, we'll have a full copy of the code. And so, we all will have some type of history of the projects. We all will have we will have to keep in sync with each other. So we will actually have to manage and merge our changes together rather than checking a file in and out. So that means that you could work on the same file that I'm working on, but we would just be responsible for resolving, merging that code together. But this definitely helps out with distributed. Like I mentioned, this does help out with the data redundancy. So hopefully those are helpful as far as kind of describing them. And so for us, we're going to be working in the distributed version control system, and that is Git. So, Git is a distributed version control system. It can handle very small projects, as they mentioned here. It can also handle very large projects as well. And so, I encourage you, you will be using this website to download Git if you haven't already, but you definitely want to take some time on this website and get comfortable with going through the documentation and reading about Git, because there's a lot of information, but there is an abundance of data that you can find here. So, Git, like I said, it can be used for large and small projects. So, you can use it just to manage, your bootcamp projects, but you can also use it to manage the entire code base for a large scale application, right? And Git is very, very popular, very, very common in our industry right now. And so, it has been for quite some time. So pretty much any company that you'll be working for, if they have somewhat of a modern tech stack, then they most likely will have some type of a Git repository, and they will be managing their code using Git. So let's see. What is the difference between Git and GitHub? Because those two things you have to distinguish between. So, I mean, I guess I technically have it open over here. So on GitHub, GitHub is actually it's an online platform that hosts your Git based projects. Okay. So It serves as a major social hub for our community, but it also allows us to have a source of truth as far as our code base. So here on GitHub is the most popular, but it's not the only tool that you can use for hosting your Git repositories. So GitLab is another alternative. I don't use GitLab. I've always used GitHub and haven't had a reason to deviate from that. And so you will pretty much see everything that I do is on GitHub. So we are going to be looking at both of the two, but I just kind of wanted to make sure that you understand those that there's some differences between those. Um, and so if we go back to Git, we want to look at some of the benefits of using Git. So, like I mentioned, when it comes to using Git, it's gonna be very fast no matter whether you are using a small or a large project. It's fast, it's quick and easy to add your team to your projects. It's quick and easy to distribute your projects. Like I mentioned, it is a distributed system, which means every single copy of the project has the entire history of the project. It has all the files that are needed, etc. And then with Git, again, one of the main things is that there is a hash, which is like a tracking code that is generated for every single commit or every single time that we take a snapshot of our project. And so this also makes it easy for us to go back and track the history of our project and revert to previous versions of the project. So there's definitely an abundance of features that Git allows us to have, but those are some of the main ones I think that makes it really popular. And I haven't really seen anything coming out um, that has the potential to take over. So for the near future, or very far into the future, this is the biggest tool that you're going to see when it comes to managing projects. So you will want to go to git-scm.com/download. And from here, you can download Git. So depending on which operating system you are on, you can download the appropriate version. So on Mac, there is actually the ability to um, either set up Git with Homebrew, which I think I've done this recently. I'll have to go back and see if I have an example if I was recording at the time, but you can download via Homebrew. They have Mac ports, which I've personally never used. They also have an installer file, but right now, all of our Apple operating systems are shipping with Git along with Xcode. So, if you have any of those installed, if you already have Xcode, then you actually might already have Git on your system. So, I am going to open my terminal. I'm on I'm on a Mac, so I'm opening terminal. But kill this server that I was working on earlier. Actually, let's go to home. Okay. So yeah, I'm on a Mac, and so I'll be using terminal. This terminal is using Z Shell, ZSH, um, because that's what I use, but also that's a default. And then my terminal looks like this because I am using a framework called Oh My ZSH, where I have different plugins and different themes. So mine may look very different from yours, and that is okay. The main thing that we're going to be looking at in the terminal is when you see a $sign here. That's how I know that I'm on a prompt line that is ready for my input. And if you want to check if you have Git, then you can just go ahead and do Git dash dash version, and I can see which version I'm on. Right now it says I'm on 2.39.2. And I think let's see, the newest version, does it even say? I think it'll say on here. Let's go back. Yeah, 2.42. I'm on 2.39, so I've installed recently. Now, for Mac, You can use Homebrew and just do brew install Git, and that is something that you'll run from the terminal. Otherwise, like I said, when you go ahead and do the Xcode install, um, it's automatically going to have a version of Git on there for you. So if you've had to do any Xcode command line tool installation on your Mac, then you probably already have it. On the flip side, if you are on Windows, the thing that I want to cover for you on Windows is that in addition to downloading Git on Windows, you will also have the ability to install a tool called Git Bash. Okay, so Git Bash is going to be um, a command line tool that you can use, and that will give you very similar results as far as the commands and the output that I'll be doing in my shell as well. So, depending on which version of Windows you have, you can either install your 32-bit or 64-bit option, and you want to select the option that will allow you to install Git Bash as a part of your project. So please, again, let me know if you have questions about going through that process. If you are using Homebrew on Mac, then you're going to be running brew install Git, and this will install Git for you automatically. But there is also going to be a prerequisite. So if you are installing via Homebrew, if you don't have Brew already, then the first thing you're going to be doing is running this install Homebrew command here. So you can just copy this command and paste that into your terminal. Again, that is only for when Mac users. So you'll run the brew installation command. Once that is done, then you can go ahead and do a brew install Git. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and move forward with the material with the assumption that you have some version of Git running on your computer locally. Now, the first thing that we want to do when we set up Git is going to be to set up our config. Okay. So, first and foremost, GitHub has quite a lot of resources as far as working with Git and GitHub. And then, like I mentioned, there is also the documentation here on the Git-SCM webpage. So if I go to the documentation and I go to the reference manual, you will see there are a lot of options here. One of the things that I would forward you to is going to be the GitHub cheat sheet. Let's see. I'm going to grab the English version PDF. Wait, is that a web page version? Let's see. Okay. So yeah, they have the cheat sheet available for you. So a lot of the common commands are here. And some of the things that we are going to do today are on this sheet as well. The other reference or resource that I would recommend is the visual. They have a visual Git cheat sheet. So this is another option that you have. Uh, Okay. So the first thing that I am going to be doing is going ahead and doing the configuration. So when you are running Git, here in my terminal, I'm in my home directory. I know I'm in a home directory because based on what I see, I can see the tilde here, the little squiggly dash. That is a tilde. So I can see the tilde here. So I know I'm in my home directory. Um, Home directory is a little bit different on Mac and Windows, but both have a home directory. Okay, so if you see the tilde, that's how you know you are in your home. And what I'm going to do from here is show some different navigation as well. First thing I'm going to be doing is running git config dash dash global user dot name. Okay. And then inside of quotes here, you can put your name. Now, make sure that you are surrounding your name with quotes, and also make sure that this is your actual name. So it's a little bit misleading that it says user.name, but it's just the name for your user, right? It's not your actual username. So this should be your name, because this is what is going to be tied to the different commits, the different snapshots that you take, the things that are credited to you in the code base. And so you don't want this to be your screen name, you want this to be your actual name. The next thing is going to be setting your email address. So that is git config dash dash global user dot email. And in this case, this is going to be the same email address that you have tied to your GitHub account. If you don't have a GitHub account just yet, that's okay. It's really quick to set it up when we get to that portion. But just think about the fact that whatever email you're going to be setting should be the same as the email that you'll have for GitHub. And that is going to allow GitHub to track your contributions. Okay. So I can set my email address. I kind of want to update it because I use this email address a lot more. Okay, so yeah, now you have those two basic things set up. Just make sure that you do that, because if you want to, as you saw on my GitHub, I have a lot of contributions here on my contribution graph. This is like a history of all types of times I was working on projects. It's like a heat graph, heat map, based on how frequent I was making contributions. And that does not work properly if you don't have the proper email address referenced on your account or on your Git configuration. All right. So the next thing that we're going to be looking into is creating our first repository. So a repository with GitHub, or I'm sorry, with Git, repository is basically your project folder. So, whatever main folder you're using to contain your entire project is typically going to be the same folder that you are using to track, using Git to track. So, whenever we say a repository, you can also think about the project's name, basically. Okay. So, for me, I recommend this uh pick a particular folder that you're going to use, that you will store all of your projects in. They will be easy to find them. If you already have a folder like that, then that's fine. But for me, I will recommend to make a directory on your desktop. So let's see, I am messing up the other screen. All right. So in order to go to our desktop, we learned about the CD change directory command. So I am in my home folder right now. Again, I know that because of the tilde. Yours is probably going to be on the same line as you are typing, but mine's is just set up a little bit differently. So I am going to, from the home folder, I can go to the desktop. And here I is where I'll make a directory. So I already have one. That's a lot of screenshots on my desktop. Don't judge me. I already have a repository. Actually, I have like 3 of them right now, just because these other 2 are demos. These were from previous Git workshops, but the one I use for all my projects is called repos. So you can make a directory on your desktop, call it, whatever makes sense to you. Make sure you don't put any spaces in your repository or in your folder name. You can call it repos or GitHub repos. So the way to run that command is just going to be, again, I'm here on the desktop. I did change directory to the desktop. And so from there, since I know I'm on the desktop, I can also do a PWD just to verify where I am before I go forward. So now you can do make directory, mkdir, and you can make yourself a directory called GitHub repos or just repos, whatever you prefer. So again, for me, it's going to tell me that this already exists because I've already created this folder. But moving forward, all of my projects are going to be inside of my folder. So my folder is the repos folder. So I'm going to CD into that folder. So just make sure that, again, first you're going to create the main directory. This will be your workspace. And then go ahead and change directory into that new folder. So mine's is called repos. So that's why I'm changing into repos. Okay. So from here, I'm going to hit clear. And I want to really encourage you, if you are watching, if you need to pause, run stuff back, definitely feel comfortable to do that. And if you're on Twitch, I don't think you can do that. But if you go on the website or if you watch from YouTube, you should be able to pause and rewind back as well if you want to spend longer on any particular step. So now that I'm here, I'm going to be creating my first repository. So this is what we will call a local repository. Local is local to me. It is located with me. Local repository is typically going to be on your computer. So on your PC, on your laptop, MacBook, whatever you have. Those are the projects that we refer to as the local projects. So you can here inside of the repos folder, I can create a new folder. It's going to be called my first project in this case. This will be one that we can play around with. So my folder already has a lot of stuff in it, but yours probably doesn't. That's okay. Yours probably doesn't have anything in it just yet. But if I do an LS, I should see that my first project is created in here now. So this is in alphabetical order. And so I do see that I have my first project here. So that way I know that I'm on track. And so after I create my first project, I'm going to CD into that folder. And again, now I can tell that I changed directories because I can see that instead of just saying home desktop repos here, I see that it is extended out now and it shows my first project. And again, if you want to ever verify, you can also do a PWD, which will show you your current directory. Stands for print working directory. And again, I have a bunch of those references in the command line fundamentals on the website as well. So if you want to see the other examples of a bunch of these commands and the explanations, they are all there for you as a resource. So I'm going to run clear, and you'll probably see me run clear very often just to bump the screen back up to the top. So from here, we have created a new folder, and then we have changed directories into that folder. So now we're going to initialize Git in this repository. Okay. Very funny. Robotic Head said, I always thought PWD was password. Yeah, it's print working directory. I always get it confused if it's print working directory or present working directory, as in like my current working directory. But when I verified it last, like 2 weeks ago, it was print. But yeah, it is print working directory. Okay, so we are here inside this folder. So the first command, our first Git command is going to be git init. Get in it. Okay, get in it. This is an initialization command. You only run this command one time in a project. So before you run this command, know that you are inside of your project folder that you created. And then you are going to go ahead and run git init. Okay. So this is what is actually going to set up Git as a version control system in this project folder, okay? Now, my terminal is set up special. So, what I have, one of the features I have is that if I am in a Git repository, I want to see that very, very plain. So now you can see based on how my setup is, if I look in between the parentheses here, there was nothing before. Now it shows me git hyphen main. Okay. So git hyphen main is telling me two things. It's telling me that this is a Git repository, and it is telling me which branch I am on. And so that's something we're going to be talking about. But a branch is a main component of our repository. Okay. So this tells me those two things right off the bat. So if before when this folder was just a normal folder, there was no information. Now I have information showing me that this is my Git repository. All right. So once you have run git init, again, that you're only ever going to run that one time. Okay. That's at the very beginning of the project setup. And that's only if you're setting up the project from your computer. So now that I have run git init, I'm going to actually move this over into VS Code. Okay. And this is a personal choice. If you have a specific text editor or IDE, integrated developer environment that you use, then you're free to do that. I am using VS Code because RIP Atom. I used to use ATOM Atom, and Atom was sunset. So I moved over to the VS Code train, but it's not too bad. So yeah, VS Code is very popular. So most people probably have VS Code. I have the command line tools installed for VS Code. It's like a shell command that you can install. So if you have that, then you can just run code, and then you can give the path to the folder that you want to open. I'm going to give a single dot because I'm opening the current directory. Okay, so I'm going to run code space dot. Just open that. If you don't have that set up, that is okay. All you need to do is go ahead and open up Visual Studio Code. However you do. If I'm on a Mac, so I usually use Spotlight Search, which is command space, and then I can type in Visual Studio Code, and you can see it's giving me the top option right here is to open up that application. So you can open it up. However, you can also open it from the dock. And if you're on Windows, you can open it from, what do they call this? The start menu, I guess it's called. So one way or another, you want to go ahead and come into this. And then if you have to open up Visual Studio Code directly, then you're going to want to go to File, Open, or File, Open Folder. In my case, on a Mac, I have to go to Open Folder. And then I can navigate to my first project and open that folder directly. Okay. So that's just another option if you were not able to open it with the code command. So I'm here inside of Visual Studio Code, and I will be opening the terminal from here and running all of my commands here moving forward. So I highly recommend and typically teach learning Git from the command line. There are alternatives that you can do as well, which involves basically using a GUI or a graphical user interface. So using a visual tool, Visual Studio Code has some visual tools kind of built into it, but I highly encourage and always support folks learning from the command line because there are specific concepts that are abstracted away in the GUIs. So however you prefer to do it, it's totally up to you. But I will be teaching all the commands from here. So that way you will understand, even if you do decide to use a GUI, you'll actually understand what the different controls are doing for you behind the scenes. So here we can go ahead and create a new file in our project, right? So we're just going to go ahead and spin up a new project. I'm going to just create this file from the command line here. So I'm going to use the touch command, and I'll do touch. Um, First thing I'm going to create is a readme.md. I'm creating this readme.md file for a specific reason because this is one of the most common first files that we would have in our Git repositories when we're especially when we're working with GitHub in particular. So it's a great place to start. The .md is markdown, so this is a markdown file. You will see that it's a pretty basic form of um, highlighting or categorizing our different text. So with Markdown, it's very similar to how we work with HTML, right? You say something is a paragraph or something is going to be underlined, or you can say that something is going to be a list. You can basically do all of these different versions of categorizing the parts of our content. So it's a very lightweight styling for text files essentially. In the markdown file, I can make um, the highest level heading, an H1, as you would call it, with just one pound sign. This is also known as the orthogonal. I always have to look that up. I think it's orthogonal, something like that. Or you know it as a pound or a hashtag. But for if I want to do a heading one, then I'm just going to do a single one of these and hit space. And then I will give the title of this project. And if I go ahead and save this, just specifically being in VS Code, what I could do is I can right click on the file name and I can do open preview. So you'll be able to see this is what my file is looking like as I make some changes. And I just want to make some changes here. Just say I can do a paragraph here. So if I give a space between, give a line break in between and say this is a demo project for Git and GitHub Fundamentals workshop. You can even see in real time that I am getting some output over here. So I'm going to go ahead and save that file. And now let's go and do our next command, which is called git status. So you will see me running git status all the time. I highly encourage you, if you are new to Git, if you are watching this workshop, git status is going to become your best friend, okay? You will run git status whenever you want to understand what the current state of your project is. And I highly recommend you always run a git status um, before you run any altering commands. And we'll talk about that, but you'll see I'll always run git status just to verify what's going on. Now, I'm almost 10 years into using Git, so I don't always run git status as much as I'm going to show you all, but I did this for a very long time, and that is also a reason why I don't run it so much now because I have I have been through this process so much that I understand the different changes between different steps, but I still run git status pretty often or just to verify things. So in this case, we have initialized Git in our project and we have created a new file. Now this file it has not been picked up by Git just yet. So Git is going to consider this an untracked file. So you can see here in the Git status, it tells us what branch we're on. Again, we're going to talk about branches. We have no commits yet. And it does tell us one very important thing. We have an untracked file. The file is readme.md. And then it also gives us a hint. This is not an absolute, but in parentheses, the Git tool will always give you hints in between just so you can understand what might be the next step that you want to take. Okay. So you don't take these as absolute, but you absolutely want to look at these because they will tend to nudge you in the right direction, especially once you're comfortable with the commands. Um, For our case, again, this file is untracked. So the first thing I need to do is track it. So until you tell Git specifically and explicitly, hey, I want you to track this file, it's not going to be keeping up with any changes that you make. Okay. So the first thing we have to do to make sure that Git is going to keep up with the changes is do a git add, and then we can give the name of the file. Whatever full name you see here is going to be the name that you're going to apply. So if this was in a folder, for example, then I would see the folder name as well as the file name as a part of this output. So in this case, I can add the readme.md, hit enter, and see, you can tell that pretty much most commands don't give you any output back if they worked successfully. So that is why the git status is so helpful. So now I can run a git status again and I can see the differences between my project. So previously when I did a git status, this is when I created a new file. It says that my file is untracked. So git add and then the file name allows me to what we call stage this file. So this is going to add this to tracking, and now this is staged. So you can think anything that's up on the stage is ready to commit. So it's kind of like you have a stage, you have if you think about a theater, you have a stage, any file that comes up onto the stage is ready to be committed. And so you can add multiple files to the staging area. And once you're ready to make a commit, then we'll actually go ahead and basically take that snapshot and give a message as well. And so that's what this next hint is alluding to when it says that we have changes to be committed. And in this case, it talks about what we might need to do if we wanted to undo or unstage this file. Okay. I'm going to talk a little bit more about undoing changes after we go through some basic commands, but this is specifically untracking the file. Okay, so this command is hinting at us completely untracking the file. So the next thing that we're going to be doing after we have added our file and we have some changes that we have made, I could think about this. This is a workshop, right? And I'm alluding to this specific workshop. One thing you can do in Markdown is you can also do URLs, hyperlinks, right? So let's go to the workshop page. I'm going to copy the URL and I want to put this. Actually, I don't need this anymore, so I'll minimize it. I want to put this inside of the project here. I want to turn this entire string of text into a URL in Markdown. So I will be recommending you to use GitHub flavored Markdown since all of our Git projects are going to be tied to GitHub in our case. So here's GitHub flavored Markdown. When you go ahead and just search for it, I always just search for it and then I just pick the GitHub Docs page. So you want to look at this from the GitHub source because Markdown, there's some variances in Markdown depending on what source you're going to be using. But here you can see more examples. You can see how to make something bold, italics, strike through. You can see subscripts as well. You can also do quotes like block quotes. Pretty much anything you can do in an email, you're probably doing here. You can change some colors, and then we're going to go to links. Okay, so this is going to be hyperlinks. So if I want to make something a hyperlink, then I can put square brackets around the text and then parentheses around the actual URL. That's how those work. So just so you'll understand why I'm doing it this way, I'm going to open my square bracket here and then close it after the text, and then I'll put parentheses right after, and I can paste the URL, okay? So now you can see in my preview over to the right, it turns my text into a hyperlink that you can click on. Okay, so that is just a quick change that I'm making. So now I'm going to save. And now let's go ahead and run the status again. So you can see just by making this change, my status is not the same anymore. Before, I just saw the option to unstage. Now I see that I have some changes that are not staged. Okay. So this is letting me know that if I was to commit right now, I would not be committing this version of my file. Okay. There are some things in this version of my file that are not staged. So we can go ahead and do our add command again. So let's do a git add and add the README. So now my status will show me that I have changes to be committed. So I'm back to the same spot I was in before. Okay, so if you make any changes, you can keep working on files, keep adding files, make any changes that are necessary, and then you go ahead and get ready to commit your files. Let's see. I just want to look at this comment. Young me used to accidentally push the node library files. Yeah, no, Git status is our best friend, okay? Git status is our best friend. So now I am ready to move into committing, okay? So this is our commit. A commit is saying, "Hey, now I wanna take a snapshot. I wanna take, this moment in time, I wanna remember it forever, but in our project." So the way we could do that is run git commit. Let me make sure I spell everything right. And then wow, Siri is, like, all in my business. Okay, we're in git commit dash m space, and then I'm gonna open quotes. Okay, I'm not done yet. Don't hit enter. Don't hit enter. Git commit dash m, and I'm gonna open quotes, and here I'm gonna provide a message. So I will say this is my initial commit, including the project readme. And then close quotes, okay? So this command, if you don't run it properly, you definitely will have to get yourself out of some sticky situations in your terminal if you're not comfortable with it. So be careful with this command. Make sure that you have your dash M. Also, make sure that you have your quotes around it. And then you can give a special message in between. So this message is basically saying, hey, I'm taking a snapshot and I'm giving a brief summary of what I did in this particular change. Okay. Initial commit is very common for the very, very first commit, but moving forward, we can talk more about the different things that we worked on. So you'll see that as we go along. All right. So now that we have our commit, we can actually do another git status, and you'll see now it just tells us we're on our main branch and we don't have anything to commit. But we could do a git log, and the git log is going to show us all of the previous commits that we have in our project history. And then you can see a few things that we looked at earlier. So one of the things that we see here is under the author, it shows my name that I provided and it shows my email that I provided. So those are being tracked with the project. So like I mentioned before, when you are setting up your git config and you set your user.name, this is your user.name. And then this is where the user.email comes in. So those are tracked alongside our commit. And then we have a hash that is automatically generated. The commit hash is unique to this particular commit. So whenever we go through our project history, all of the hashes are going to be unique IDs basically, and those allow us to actually navigate back to previous versions if necessary. All right, we have our date, our timestamp, and then you can see the message that I provided. Once you are at the end of the list of commits, then it'll just say end at the bottom. If you want to exit out of that, just type Q on your keyboard and it will go ahead and bring you back to your regular prompt. Okay, so a git log is just going to be a good way for you to go ahead and track or to visually see what are the commits you have. So we have looked at initializing using the git init command. We have looked at the git add command, which allows us to both track a file in our project and also allows us to stage changes that we make to our files in our projects. Then we use the git commit command. And for git commit, we use this in order to take a snapshot of the project at that present moment. Actually, I should say we are taking a snapshot of anything that is staged in our project at that present moment. And so then from here, I want to talk a little bit more about a couple of things you can do if you need to undo anything. Okay, so we'll look at some different versions of undoing. Now, the first thing I'm going to show you, let's see. What happens if we make a change and we want to completely undo any changes we made in the file? So think about this. If for some reason I was just, not paying attention and I accidentally put some extra items in my code and I have those saved. There's a few different ways I could go about trying to undo that, but one of the big things I could do is here if I run a git status now, see that I have 2 hints that kinda nudges me in different directions. The first hint is letting us know about using git add in order to update what is gonna be committed, right? So that's staging. That's what we did previously, but the next one is actually showing us how to undo those changes. So again, this is a specific situation where I have made changes to the file and I just want the file to go back to the version that it was before for whatever reason. And so I could do a whole bunch of undos in my terminal, but or I could go through here and try to pick out everything, or I could just actually use git to do this for me. So in this case, I'm going to run a git restore and then the file name, which is readme.md. And now you can see up top all of the extra characters that were out of place are gone. I'm basically sending this setting this file back to how it was in the most recent commit. So that is the git restore. Okay. So that is only for undoing changes that you have not staged yet. Now, if for some reason you got a bunch of junk in here and you saved it, and then you didn't really do a status first and you just kind of jumped in. You're like, git add, because I know how to do this. Bam. Now this is staged like this. So what do I do? Well, let's talk to git status first. So git status shows me some information. It, in this case, shows me a different command for unstaging than what we saw earlier. Again, the only reason this is a different command is because earlier we were looking at a brand new file. In this case, this is a file that is being tracked by Git. But what we could do is, since we have not committed yet, we can undo the add, okay? We have not committed yet, so we're going to undo this git add. And the way that we can do that is by running git restore dash dash staged and then the file name. So this is going to unstage the file for me, which means I'm just undoing the add. I'm not undoing the change to the file. I'm just undoing the add. And then if I wanted to take it a step further and get rid of these files for whatever, or get rid of these changes, then I could do the same thing I did earlier, which was to run a restore. See, I can do a git status again and it'll show me, yeah, go ahead and do a git restore with the file name to get rid of those changes. Okay, so those are a couple things you can do to undo. And then the last thing that I'm going to show, I want to show y'all how to undo a commit. Okay. So let's run through that one more time. I put some stuff in here by mistake. I just decided to, go ahead and add that file without checking into it. And then I even did a commit. In this case, I've gone ahead and committed that change. So now there's no running that back like how I was able to do before. So in this case, this is only because I still only have my commits here on my computer and I have not branched out into pushing those changes. I don't have this actually even synced up to GitHub just yet, but I have not sent those changes out of my local environment, right? So since I still have these, I'm going to try something. I'm going to try another command for you all. So in this case, let's do git log, and I think we can do this, dash dash pretty equals one line. So that's just another version of doing the git log. In this case, now it puts everything on one line for us, makes it a little bit easier to read. So here's my initial commit at the bottom. And then this is my current commit up top. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually revert this commit. So I'm going to copy this. I have to get the commit hash. And again, now I can get out of the log by hitting Q. So let's run git revert and give the hash. Let's see. I have to says after resolving couldn't I revert? Says after resolving the conflicts, mark them and then run git revert dash dash continue. Or you can skip this commit and abort. But what I want to do is I want to follow the prompts to move forward. So I am going to resolve the conflicts. The way that I will resolve the conflicts in this case is let's go in here. This is a demo project and get rid of this. So that should be good. Now let's go git revert dash dash continue. Oh, I have to mark it. Yep. Git add and then the path. So git status, git add. Does it want me to do? Hold on. Yeah, git add readme.md. Now we have a status and git reverts dash dash continue. So this is going to revert my commit. This is an editor that typically pops up. This can also pop up if you forget to put your dash M on your git commit. You forget to do your dash M in your message. This is like just a common thing. So I'll talk about just some basic commands you need here. Whenever you have a merge conflicts or you're resolving some type of merge conflicts, you will have to kind of update this. You don't really need to touch anything here. Any of the lines that have a hashtag or a pound sign here are basically considered comments. So these are just informational to you, but none of these are going to be saved in that commit. The lines that are basically plain text here are showing you what the commit details are going to be. Okay, so in this case, I can do a few things. If I did want to edit anything, I could do I. Now, when I see at the bottom it has insert, I could make any changes I need to make. If I'm good to go, I can hit escape to get back out of the insert mode. Now, if I want to quit, I can do colon WQ, and that is going to be to write and quit. Okay, so that will get you that will get you out of the Vim state, and that will save the file that you are currently working in. So that's a little tidbit that can come up. Those are a few ways that you could undo some things. Now, if I do a git status, if I do a git log, I could see that I can revert the changes that I made in this other commit. So I don't want to go too far into reverting and things like that because that can definitely get tricky. And we are going on the beginner friendly route, but just showing you a few phases of what it looks like to undo some changes that you have locally. So the next thing that I want to jump into is going to be how we will sync up our repository with GitHub. Okay. Let's see. We have commits, we're ready to go. So let's go to GitHub. Now, GitHub, like I said, it holds a special place in my heart just because since my GitHub account was created when I first got into coding in general, pretty much, all of my history lives here on GitHub. My entire history as a developer, pretty much. Um, I might not necessarily be able to see everything that I worked on. That's because some projects are private, and if I don't work for the company anymore, then I'm not a part of that repository. But otherwise, I can pretty much see all the changes, everything that I've done in my history of, being on the platform. So this is a very, very common platform. That's why most of us use it. That's why most of us teach it because this is like I would say the industry leader as far as which platform you will see most people hosting their code on, most companies hosting their code through, and they are a leader in the open source community. Just being, let's see if I can do here so we can see the basic site. But yeah, they are a leader in the open source community. So if you are coming to the main homepage, you'll just see how to sign up, and you'll see, a little bit about the company. But we really love GitHub. And now, very recently, they have been leaning more into the social side of GitHub. So in the past, it's always been that you could host your code here. You could showcase projects, showcase your technical skills. Different open source projects will host their code here. This is where you can go if you want to contribute to those projects. But they've also really been leaning into the social aspect of it as well. So I'm excited to see how some of those features are evolving. So for us, I will say GitHub was launched in April of 2008. So even for me coming in 2014, just hearing about it for the first time in 2014, the project had still been around for quite a while. But by 2014, it was definitely the standout, like, you absolutely learn GitHub. So, I have been using it for a while, but it has been around for a very long time at this point, in the tech years, I guess you could say. And they are a leader in the open source community. So almost every project that you might be interested in either has their code hosted on GitHub or they mirror their code to GitHub so that you can see more about their projects. So GitHub does lean a lot into the open source aspect and supporting open source as well. So for Hacktoberfest, GitHub is one of the main platforms that you will be able to participate using. Now, If you need to set up an account for the first time, it's pretty straightforward. You can go ahead and create a username, use your username or email address, and you can create a password, and you can just sign in that way. So, actually, yeah, create an account. So here's they can prompt you. I don't know if I want to go through. I don't know if I want to go through this just because I don't want to make an extra account that I'm not going to use. But yeah, you can type your password, your email, and then you can go ahead and sign in. So when you are on GitHub for the first time, you're not going to have pretty much anything over here on the left-hand bar, probably because I have different projects. And then I am also, I have different accounts here, some that I can manage, some organizations. So I have quite a few things that shows on my left sidebar. As you do more and more activity on the website, then you'll see other things here in my home feed. Again, for me, this is one of the things that GitHub has been leaning into, something I appreciate, but I have stuff here in my home feed, especially based on different projects that I follow, um, or different folks that I follow. This is like a coworker that I used to work with, and you can also see that there is something called trending with GitHub. So GitHub actually now keeps track of repositories that are getting a lot of activity. And you can see things that are, maybe interesting, maybe up and coming. Um, and then there's a lot of differences between repositories because some repositories are code, some are informational. As you can see here, this one is just free certifications, and it has a chart that has a link to all types of free certifications. So this is a resource that someone is providing to the community. And then if you go, you can also see educational projects as well. So Byte Go is awesome resource. They talk a lot about system design. And they have YouTube and newsletters and things of that nature. But you see here they also have a repository, and this actually serves as an educational repository. So it's talking about the differences in different types of system design in this one in particular, okay? And the markdown file like we created, they're using the markdown files in order to actually pretty much set up educational content here on the platform directly instead of you having to go elsewhere. So there's a lot of variety to what you may see in the different types of repositories, but those are the main ones you're going to see. You're going to see code bases, so I can go here as well because this one most certainly is a code base. It is in Python. This is a LLM tool. I haven't used it before, but yeah, I do look like a lot of studying and learnings in machine learning and AI. So I can just see stuff like, okay, it's an agent, sets up agents and stuff like that. But I've never used this before in particular. But yeah, so this is a code base. So here in this repository, instead of seeing like the markdown files that we saw before, we see an actual project and its entire structure. So if I click into any of the folders, I can actually see the Python files um, that are a part of this project. So GitHub is awesome with the homepage because again, like I said, you'll start to see people that you follow, updates from them, updates from any repositories that you follow as well. But you will also see here different things that are popular in the community. And they're really starting to build this out. So I like to see where they're going with that. The next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna head over to my profile. So you can click at the top right hand corner. I have a profile image because mine's is set up already, of course. Um, and you could go ahead and check out your profile. Yeah, I guess the best way to do that is definitely gonna be hit the profile image at the top right and then just go to your profile. So here, when you're very new, you just started your account, you won't have anything really here on this homepage, but I do have a README, and that's the first thing that I'm gonna show you all how to set up here. This is a special repository on GitHub. This particular repository is going to host one markdown file, excuse me, and that markdown file allows you to provide more detailed information about you, right? So, of course, off to the left-hand side, we also have the different fields. We can put our name, we can do a very brief bio, but this is like a old school like 140 character tweet type of bio. So it's very quick and to the point. There was never really much we could talk about here in this bio, and so this README is a new feature that I really love because it allows us to get more in depth about who we are, what we care about, and what types of things we might want people to focus on when they come to our profile. So now you can also set I can set organizations that I am connected to by just using their handle with an at. Then I can set an email address. So this is based off of email addresses I have on my account. If you only have one email address on your account, then that's your option. But for me, I have multiple email addresses tied to my account. And so any of those email addresses I could actually switch through to make that my default. Then you have a link here. So if you want to link to your website or something like that, you can. And then I they have Twitter, they have Twitch, and then they have a couple other extras that you can use as well. So like I could do YouTube. Wait, I think those might hold on, let's see. YouTube.com/at meta dev girl. So I'm gonna save that. And yeah, that's what I was thinking. It automatically picks up which social platform it is and picks the right icon for it. So that's really nice. So highly recommend go ahead and make sure you fill out your profile. But we're gonna go and set up the README for our profiles as well. So I have done this many, many times. In the last year, I have done this so many times. I have deleted this and started over every time. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna copy everything that's in here. This is the last time I'm gonna have to I think this will be the last time I have to do this, delete this for demonstration purposes. So I'm gonna delete this and then I'm gonna walk you all through the process. So if I want to delete, I'm gonna go say I want to delete. I have read and understand, and I have to type the name of the project. Security key. All right, so let me go ahead and do this without showing all my business to the world. Let's see, what am I doing? Cancel authenticator. Alrighty, so we're back. All right, so I went ahead and deleted the repository. So sadly, now you can see this is what our profiles used to look like. Not bad, but now you can see why it's really nice to have that profile readme because this is just not really encompassing of who I am as a developer, especially nowadays. So the first thing I'm going to be doing is setting up a repository, and it's going to be a special repository. Okay, so this is going to be a different version of setting up a repository. This is going to be setting a repository up from GitHub first. So let's go through this process. I'm going to go and hit the plus sign and do create a new repository. You can find new repository from multiple spots in your UI, but the plus sign is pretty much always there. When you're on the main page, you also see the new, this like green new button as well. So this is a special repository. This repository needs to have the exact same name as your account. So you can see off to the left-hand side as the owner, you see my username, Jessica. So my repository name has to exactly match. Okay. So if you don't do this properly, then this is not going to work the way that it'll work, how I'm demonstrating it. So be careful with the naming. Make this repository the exact same name as your user account. Okay. So I am setting this up, and then you will even notice that on GitHub, they let me know, hey, this is a special repository. So it says that um, you can use this repository, add a README, and that will show up on your GitHub profile. And they also let you know, make sure it's public and initialize it with a README to get started. Okay. Um, so they tell you everything you need to know, but make sure this is a public repository and go ahead and add a README file. Okay. So this is when you are creating your repository for the first time on GitHub. So I'm creating the repository name. I'm picking the type. Almost always it's going to be public. And then I am adding a README in this case. You can also add some other options here, but we're going to skip over those for now and hit create. So now I have this repository and it does show me, um, just the basics. So all I have is a hi there. And that's pretty much it because they do actually give you some standard text inside of that README file. And if I want to see that file a little bit more, I can actually go and click on the file name and look at raw. And here in the raw version, I can actually see all the text that's in there. Just happen to know that there is a comment in the file as well. So you can see it here. There's commented out text that actually tells you, shows you an example of something you can do to set up your profile. So we are going to be customizing this, but I'm going to do this locally. So this is what I want to do next. I'm going to go ahead and clone my project. So we can go to the code option here. And I'm doing, you should clone from HTTPS at this point. I'm doing SSH. That's because I have a specific setup for SSH. You can clone from HTTPS. Which URL you choose matters. So if you have not set up SSH before, if you don't know what I'm talking about, just pick the HTTPS option. But you want to go ahead and copy that link. And then I'm going to go back to my terminal. And I'm going to be careful because I'm inside of a project folder right now. I'm already inside of a Git repository, right? So if I PWD, I can actually see that I'm inside of my first project. I'm going to CD space. I want to go up one directory because I want to go back to repos. So I'm going to CD space dot dot. And dot dot again, we talked about that in the last workshop, but dot dot is going to be shorthand hand for your parents, the parent directory. So go one directory up. So now I am inside of repos. Okay, so this is where I'm going to clone my project. So again, be careful where you clone projects. Don't clone a Git project inside of another Git project. I am back in my repos folder where I can see all of my projects. And from here, I'm going to go ahead and do a Git clone. I don't wonder, can I do this? Hold on. I already have this one here. So let me do myself a favor because I deleted it already. So that's fine. This is the old version. Yeah. Okay. Colon Q. Escape. Hello. Okay. Sorry, I just want to make sure because I've done this before. I already had it right. So I have to delete the one I have. Let's move it to practice. You can just disregard this. Now I can, if I do a ls, you cannot, when you clone, it's gonna make a folder for you. And the folder is gonna be named after whatever the repository name is. So since I already have had another folder with the exact same name because it was the old project, that clone wasn't gonna work for me. So that's why I just went ahead and deleted that. So now I'll have a similar setup as you, and I can go ahead and do a git clone and paste this in. I'm so glad I didn't delete that too, because I just thought about the fact that I copied all of the stuff out of my README and then I copied my clone URL. So this is why I don't move stuff. But yeah, so now that I have that set up, my new folder was actually created inside of this. So if I ls now, I can see I have this folder again, and I'm gonna open it with VS Code. So code space and then my folder name. I'm literally laughing at myself. Okay. So this is the repository that I had created on GitHub. This is my local copy. So the remote copy is the copy that is on GitHub, and the local copy is the one I have here. And if I was to have anyone else want to work on this project, then they could also actually clone the project now, and they would have access to, or they would have a copy of that exact project. So if you see when you go ahead and open up this project and you look at the README, they do have a comment in here for you. So the comment is just to show you, just to show some examples of how you might want to set this up. I don't like here you can look at a preview if you want to see. I'll get rid of the comment. Um, I'll show you again how I did earlier. I can look at open preview. And this is what it would look like if I wanted to use that. I didn't personally like how this was bullet pointed, so you would notice I didn't have bullet points in mine. I do keep the comment here because I don't know, I just kind of like having it. Now I'm going to do myself a favor and I'm going to go back to the other version that I had. File, open folder, and I moved my old one into my practice folder. So for me, I put a lot of information in my README. August 26th. I hope this is the most recent version. It looks like it though. So I can open this folder just so I'll have the I'll have the reference to the old one. Okay. So yeah, you can I'm literally gonna replace what I have in my file with what I had previously. You can make any changes that you want though. Someone was saying, "Oh, reminded me I should update my README file." Yeah, so definitely if you have done this before, update your README. And that is one thing I wanted to do. I actually wanted to update my README. I just figured out that you can put your hollow pins badges on your README. So if you are already signed up for Hacktoberfest, if you've been following along, you already signed up. And one of the things about Hacktoberfest is that they do have badges. So if I go ahead and hit start hacking, if you're not already signed in, it'll just prompt you to here, I'll log out. It'll prompt you to authorize with GitHub or GitLab. So now I can initiate. And this is how for Hacktoberfest, this is how they will automatically track your progress. But I have some badges here and I've been waiting to claim these badges. So they're on a site called HoloPin. I'm going to hit, let's do the first one. I'm going to hit claim now. And again, if you're not already signed in, um, if I hit claim it now, it'll just, tell me to either sign in or log in or sign up. So I guess I'm gonna hit sign up with GitHub, and now I'm already signed into GitHub, so it just goes and signs me in. But this is a I think this is technically an avatar, but this is one of the options that was sent to me from Hacktoberfest, so I'm gonna claim it. I earned the Hacktoberfest 2023 registered badge. This is an avatar, I think. So I mean, it's not very many things I could change. Oh, I have to reach levels. Let's do I don't know. I wanted to change it, but like this is on brand for me, so I can save. And let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm assuming strong assumption. I'm assuming with this badge or with this avatar, I can unlock other levels based on doing my 4 Hacktoberfest contributions. That's a guess. But now I can also go to my profile and I have a couple other badges that are already on here. So like this is a badge I got from a special demo for Twilio Signal last year. Uh, and then I don't know how I got this one. Hacktoberfest 2022. Okay. So that's a Docker badge. And then here's the new one. So let's do this. I can go to my board because I just discovered this, y'all. I can go to my board because I was like, you have to be able to put these on GitHub in your markdown. And they actually provide you literally an exact um chunk of text, an exact chunk of markdown that you can use in order to display your badges on your profile README. So what I'm going to do is go to show inventory and I'm going to add all my badges that I have so far. And I'm just going to, put them up here because I have some other ones as well. And I am making a change to my README. So I'm going to copy this copy what they gave me here. So I see an image of okay, so that's like um it's a link and a link. I'm I'm gonna copy this exactly because I think they know exactly how they want that to show. And I'm going to take this back over to my README. Should I put it at the top? I don't know how big it is, so I'm gonna put it at the bottom for now. So underneath all the rest of my content, I'm gonna put that inside and save this. So now you can see in my preview, I can actually see the image that is displayed from that code. And it is a link, so it actually links over to HoloPen for those if you want to see more of the badges, it goes to my HoloPen profile. So that's just the changes I wanted to make here. There's some other things I could possibly do, but right now I'm just gonna go ahead and make sure I save that. So now let's go to the terminal. This is a little bit different because in this case, this repository was already created from GitHub and I cloned it. So I don't have to do an init. I'm not going to run git init because my project is already initialized as a Git repository. You can tell, like me, I can tell already because I know how it works. I can also tell because in my command line, it shows me Git and then it shows me what bridge I'm on. But if you don't have any of those other indicators, you can also always do a status. So if you run git status, if the folder is not a repository, it's gonna say it's literally gonna say it's not a Git repository. But otherwise, you'll see Git status shows me that I can add or stage this file. So if I want to save the changes, I'm gonna git add the README, git commit -m, and I'll say I added my profile and updated with the hollow pin badges. So these are all the steps we have taken so far in our previous example. Then if I do a log now, you can see my initial commit. This is the commit that was made when I set up the project. They just call it initial commit. So when I set it up on GitHub and I said generate a README, that is the first commit. And now I can see my commit here as well, my new commit. So again, Q to get out of that. Now I'm going to do another command, which is a push. So once I have all of my changes committed and I'm ready to save those or share those back to the project, I can run a git push. And that will go ahead and send all of the changes I have locally, any of the commits I have locally. It will go ahead and sync that up with the project here. So if I go and just refresh this page now, you can see my README is back. And this time, with a little bonus, I have my hollow pins set up as well. So if I go back to my main page of my profile, now you will see I have all of those options. And I'm going to go back to HoloPen for a second and claim my other badges. So I got a digital ocean smiley. These are all for Hacktoberfest this year. I got the Illa Cloud participant badge. And Appright is a sponsor as well, so they also have a badge. So all of them, they're all like Hacktoberfest badges, but I can go since I claimed my badges, I can go to my profile again and I can edit my board. So show inventory. Um Here, let's add everything, you know? Why not? Why not? Close that and so it's kind of like a sticker situation. Just drag stuff around however you want. I'll put this one over here, put this one here. However, I don't know. Nothing crazy. I just want to demonstrate this. But okay, so now my badges are there. So if I refresh, Yeah, it'll generate that image when it loads in. So, however you have the badges, they'll just show up updated on there. So, that's really cool. I've been wanting to play around with the README a little bit more and put some more interesting items in the README. So, this was definitely on my list of things to do. So feel free again, if you want to look at more about the markdown and how to format your markdown, then you can check out that page I was talking about, which is the GitHub flavored markdown. I am also going to put this as a resource on the site as well, under the project. So GitHub flavored. All right, so even now, if I update the page, then you should see some changes. Yep, so there's a link now on the page for the GitHub flavored markdown. I'm gonna delete the other tabs that I don't need because people always hounding me about my tabs. But let's go ahead and get some more interesting things in before we wrap up. So this is just one of the ways that we can sync up with a repository. So now I have created a repository from GitHub, and I've cloned it, and that syncs up my local and my remote. But I have not done the same for a project that I have on my computer. So I'm going to go and check out I guess I'll go back to the other project that I had before, and we can push this one if you would like. You can delete it later if you want, but I mean, one of the beauties of GitHub is, some of our stuff is learning and some of our stuff is practical projects. So, I'm going to push this my first project with the hopes that I don't already have something called my first project on GitHub. Um Okay. Well, we will find out very soon, actually. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do next. So we are back in my first project, and the problem we have now is that we have commits here, but our code only exists on our computer. Okay, it does not exist on GitHub yet or anyone else's computer. So that idea of redundancy has not been handled. So what I want to do is I want to create a repository on GitHub that's going to sync to this repository. Now, this is a different process, but showing you pretty much the same things that we just did. So with my profile README, I created on GitHub and then I cloned it. With this example, I initialized it locally, and now I need to create a remote or basically the GitHub repository and link those together. So again, I can go here. I'm in my first project. I'm doing a git status. If I do a git log, we can see I have a couple commits here, and I'm going to hit Q to exit out of that. So now let's go ahead and go over to GitHub. I'm going to create a new repository again. This time I need to name the repository the same. I want to name it the same as my folder that I have set up locally. Okay. So our project folder, if you're following exactly what I have, then you should have a folder called my first project, my hyphen first hyphen project. So when I go to GitHub, I'm going to just name it exactly the same. Technically, you don't have to name it the same, but I highly recommend that you do. And you could see by default, if you create your repository here first and you clone they're automatically going to have the same names. So no need to deviate from that. So I am making sure that this repository name matches the one I already have set up. I'm going to keep it as public, but there's one slight difference to this. In this case, I have already created the repository from the command line. So since I have already created it from the command line, I am going to initialize this as an empty repository. Okay, so don't add any other options here. Just give a public repository and create your repository that way. So this is specifically for a repository that you have already set up on the command line, and you're just making one on GitHub to sync them together. So in this case, they give me some steps. If I hadn't already made my repository, it tells me all the steps I would need to make some files, but we already did all of this basically. So since I already have an existing repository, I am going to look at this second option that says push an existing repository from the command line. So I've already done a git init. I've already done a git add on my README. I've already done my commits. So the next thing I'm going to do is run this git remote add origin command. So the git remote add origin, and then it gives you the URL to the project. The purpose of this command is to sync the literal URL to the GitHub repo, sync it with your local repo. This is done automatically whenever you clone a project, but since this is the opposite step, we have to do this manually. So I'm doing git remote add origin, and then this is the link to the Git project on GitHub. So I can just literally copy that whole thing and press enter. So now the URL is tied to the project. I'm going to go back and do the second line as well. I'm doing these one by one, but you could copy and paste them all in at the same time. Git branch -m, capital M, and then main, lowercase m main. So I am making my main branch, officially setting my main branch here. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to now push. And this is a different version of the push command. I only have to run this long command one time. But what this is going to do is push my commits that I have locally to this repository here on GitHub. But it's also going to do something special. So it has this -u flag here, or option, and -u is basically saying that I want to set the upstream for this repository. So what that means is essentially I am saying every time you push on this branch, it I want you to push the code from this branch here locally to origin main. And origin is the GitHub repository. Okay, so this is saying every time you push, put your upstream where you are pushing this code to is going to be the URL for that project, and then it's going to the main branch in particular. Okay, so we won't have to do this anymore by using -u. In this case, it's going to set that as a default for us automatically. So I just kind of want to explain that a little bit because you won't see me using that anymore once I have run that. So git push -u, lowercase u, origin, which refers to the origin that we set for our remote, and then main, so that I will have a matching branch on my remote. All right, so I pushed my code for my first project. So now if I go back to this page, I should be able to refresh here, and you'll see that the code that I had been working on previously is now all here. And one really nice thing is you can see that it didn't matter that I did, all of my commits 45 minutes ago now. All of the history as far as everything I committed is here, just like I pushed this in real time. So I don't recommend waiting too long to push your changes. It's very important that you make sure that you are syncing up with your repositories periodically so that it will be easier to merge changes in. But with that being said, if for example, your Wi-Fi went out for a while, but you wanted to get some work done, you could be working all day on your computer with no internet connection. You could be making your commits as you go along. And then once you get connection to the internet again, you could go ahead and push your changes, and everything would still track as far as whatever time you actually did those changes. Okay. So that is something that you can definitely take advantage of. You don't have to be online if you have Git installed locally in order to be getting your commits in. But definitely make sure that you are going to be pushing often. So that is showing us the process to create from the command line, and then going ahead and connecting our local repository that we created from the command line to a remote repository on GitHub. The last thing I want to show you that is related to a special repository on GitHub is going to be your personal domain. And this is another one that I'm going to show you by connecting it from GitHub first. And again, I'm excited that this will be the last time that I have to delete this repository in order to restart it, because let's see, we did this workshop. I did this in a podcast, I think. Is that what I figured? Yeah. Pretty sure. Let's see. So I should have a special repository here. Go to repository. Okay, there we go. So this one is my username.github.io. Yeah, so I did this in a podcast as well so that I could talk through the entire process, because that was supposed to be the last time I had to delete this in order to demo it. But then I was like, I think the audio was crackling on the podcast. So we're doing this one more time. Okay, so I'm going to be deleting this repository just so I can show you all this process again. So let me delete it, and then we'll talk about what it really means. Uh oh, I don't have hardly anything in here right now. Okay, cool, cool, cool. So delete it, delete, and they do make you do. Oh wow, how am I over there typing? What the heck happened? Escape. Let's just escape. That didn't seem to pick up just the way it was supposed to. All right, so we starting over. So this is another very special repository that you have on GitHub if you've never used it before, and it allows you to have a hosted web page on um, that GitHub actually manages for you. It is really pretty much going to be typically like a front end stack. So I mean, it's a web page, so HTML, CSS, JavaScript, but there are a couple tools that does work with this that are static site generators as well. But as long as you are using some standard HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, you can't go wrong with that. And what happens is when you create this special repository, you will have something called GitHub Pages set up for you. GitHub Pages is like a deployment service that GitHub has. And in this case, by default, you are going to get a subdomain that is under GitHub, and that subdomain is unique to your user account. Okay. So in order to activate this, mine is jessica.github.io. If you don't have the repository, then nothing's going to be present on that domain for you. However, when you go ahead and set this repository up, then you are going to be able to take advantage of that domain and you can deck it out and get your portfolio set up over there. So for me, I have decided that I'm going to use that as a place to talk about the different um, tech projects that I have going and get more into detail on my tech projects in particular. So we are going to be creating a new repository. Now, this one has to be named in a special way. Now, after this, every other repository, pretty much you pick your own name. But in this case, this one has a special naming convention, just like the other. So instead of just your name, you need to do your name, exactly your username, .github.io. Okay. So it has to be names like this. And if you want to find out more, if you look up the GitHub pages documentation, pages.github.com, they do show you under user or organization site under that option. They show you exactly how it has to be named for your account as well. So you can see in this case, the person's account name is Sofshep. So you can see sofshep.github.io is the repository name. So if you want to go through any like further resources with this, they definitely show you how you can set up your project that way as well. So just want to point that out as a reference. And they also show you here how you can set GitHub pages in any other project sites that you have, and you can just see some visuals of walking through that. So that's a good resource for you all. But yeah, we're going to just set this up. So make sure you are naming the repository your username .github.io. I also documented all of these steps. Um If you go to leveraging GitHub as your technical portfolio, you can see exactly the steps to set up your profile README, as well as the steps to setting up your repository pins and your GitHub domain. So I also have screenshots and things like that from this for this example. All right, so I'm going to say this is my um, technical project portfolio. I don't want to make it like too redundant because it's like y'all can see my name and stuff like that. So my description, I will give it a description. This is the technical project portfolio, technical portfolio for projects hosted here on GitHub. All right, so I'm good with that. It's going to be public. Make it public. And then I'm creating this on GitHub first. So I am going to add a README and I'm going to go ahead and hit create now. So remember, just like we did before, this actually created the repository for us. And so the next thing we're going to do if we want to make changes from our computer is copy our clone URL. Yours most likely, if you don't have SSH, you copy the HTTPS clone URL. Go back to the terminal. I am already inside of my repos folder. I know if I do pwd, it will verify that for me. And so here, let me do this really quick. Move this over. Because I've done demos. So I just kind of want to make sure You have to make sure you don't have colliding folder names. So here, if I ls inside of my repos, I have a Jessica, but I don't have a jessica.github.io. So I should be good to go ahead and git clone and clone the repository that they gave me. So now if I ls, not only do I have Jessica, but I have jessica.github.io. And in the amount of time that it has taken me to do that, my page is probably deployed by now. So this is how GitHub Pages works. If in this case, GitHub Pages get set up automatically for us. In other projects, you can configure them with GitHub Pages, but this one actually sets up for us automatically. So when I go to the settings and I go to Pages in the left hand, and this changes with time, but recently they updated this. So when I look at the Pages tab, you can see here that it already shows me that my site is deployed and it shows me my URL. So before I was getting a 404 once I deleted that repository. Well, this is active again. And so literally with just a README file, this actually works, but we're going to go and set up some HTML and get an image up here and things like that. But just for the record, you don't even need to do that. You can actually just manage this page with markdown files if you prefer. So what I'm going to do is, oh, one thing I want to show you here is that whenever you make any changes now, you will be able to see once the build is done and once that code is deployed. So it takes a few minutes for your changes to go live, but you can actually manage and see the updates here in this settings tab under pages. There's some other options we have. So if you wanted to deploy from a different branch, you could. So main is the default. In the past, we used to have something called GH-pages. So we used to have a GH pages branch. You don't have to have that anymore, but you might see that in other repositories. They'll have a branch called GH-pages, and that would be the branch that actually has code deployed on it. So it's up to you. You can keep it on main and then you can actually just make a branch, make changes to your branch. And once you're ready, merge those changes in. I'm going to show that process, but you could also, just decide essentially exactly which branch you want to use. You also have the option to configure a custom domain. So I used to have like jessica.com and I don't really maintain that anymore, but because I wasn't trying to maintain a full project over there when I already have MetaDev Girl. But yeah, since I have like a specific use case for this, I could actually put a custom domain and tie that here. So that's another option that you have. Um There's definitely more I would recommend you getting into, but for now, these are the main ideas. The other thing is if for some reason, you have your files inside of docs, this is a way that you could, this is for, like, more so projects where you might have documentation and you wanna basically make a web page for, your documentation. So they have the ability to switch from deploying the root code to deploying from a docs folder. But those are just some other options. So now that I have this set up and now that mine is live and running again, let's go ahead and make some changes. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to make a branch and how to merge your branch in and how to do a PR or a pull request on GitHub. This is going to be very helpful for your projects, whether you are collaborating with someone directly or whether you are looking to collaborate on an external project as well. Branching is very important. So here's the thing. Right now, literally whatever I have on the main branch is what is going to show on GitHub Pages. So if I wanted to work on something and be able to commit and push my code without having to like muddy up the site. Like I can basically commit my changes to a branch until I'm ready for them to get merged into the live site. So we've been seeing so far, let's go back to, did I clone that? I had to have cloned it, right? Oh, I didn't clone it yet, huh? Oh, yes, I did. Yes, I did. I want to close some of these folders since we already did that one. We already got this one set up. So ls, I have jessica.github.io. So I'm going to go code and open that one up in VS Code. All right. So this is where we are working from. Can you get bigger? Okay. All right. So here inside of VS Code, all I have is the README file. So yeah, with GitHub pages by default, if you don't have an index.html, which is the default HTML landing page, right? That's the default page that loads up for us when we have a static web project. If you don't have that in your project, then it will go ahead and deploy the code that is in your markdown file. However, once you're ready to get everything set up, you can go ahead and create your files. So it's up to you how you want to create it. Um, Sorry, I think I heard my son's toys. But it's up to you how you want to create it. You can either go ahead over here in the left-hand panel, right click and do new files. I'm just do a lot of stuff from terminal because I'm used to it. So I'm going to create an index .html. And I'm going to actually set up just some basic info here inside of this page. Now, if I do a git status, I could see that this is a very new file, so it is untracked. And what I'm going to do is before I even do anything else, I'm going to make a branch. So in in Git in particular, a branch is a way that you can it's literally called branching. You can take a version of one particular branch and you can use that as a starting point for another another source in the code, I guess you could say. So this is going to be saying, hey, go ahead and take the current version of main that I'm on and create a new branch. And in this case, this branch, I'm going to be making all of my changes on. So let's go get checkout. It's a new branch. So in order to create a new branch, I have to do -b, got dash lowercase b, and then I give it a branch name. So this is going to be set up boilerplate, whatever I want to name my branch. Depending on whether you are working on an open source project, there could be naming conventions that they recommend. Otherwise, just naming it something short and sweet that's very obvious to you what that branch is supposed to be responsible for. Um, and then that way you can remember the names of the branches as well. So I am going to do git checkout -b, and then I call it setup boilerplate, all one word. So I would just put hyphens in there. And now this switches over to a new branch. So I'm no longer on the main branch. Now I am on a new branch. So this is like basically a completely different this is a completely different source of the code. So this won't affect anything that was on my main branch. What I want to do is let's do HTML5. I'm going to do some boilerplate here. And let's name this like, let's see. We just put a title, which is what's going to show in the tab. And then for now, I'm going to put an image. And my image is, let's see. I'll use Finder for this because it's easy, not Fidelity. Sorry. Command F, Finder. Here is my Finder, which is like my file navigator. So I'm gonna go, I think in downloads, I should have a headshot. Um, Here it is. Well, that's the copy. I want the real one. What's it called? Copy. Let's do myself a favor and sort it alphabetically because I know it has my name on it. Okay, here it is right here. So I just have a file called Chasika, and there's a few things you can kind of play around with. Um, if I here, let me minimize this. All right, so I have my project open here. And then I also have my Finder window. So this is something I can do with my Mac. I can actually just drag that image right into the File Explorer in VS Code, and it automatically moves that picture or copies that picture in for me. I'll say it copies it because I still retain a copy from download, so I'm not moving it. It actually copies that over. So that's just a quick way that I typically easily move images in into my projects if I have them on the computer elsewhere. So I have my index and then I also have an image here. So what I can do is I can set my source uh relative to my index.html. A headshot of just camo bomber. Signature pink and blue hair. So I got some alt text for my image. I'm gonna save that. Now this is a local project right now, so I could just copy the path to the index.html just to verify what changes I've made. So it's like literally just a big old image there. And let's at least do like a H1 with the same thing as my title. So it's my name, meta dev girl. I noticed that I want to update the G here. So I'll save my changes and go back in the browser. Again, this is my local copy. So I'm just checking it out just to make sure everything is there. And so now what I can do is I can go ahead and do a status. And I'm going to do a git add on both of these files. So here's a new version of the git add command. And this is something that people actually get exposed to a lot. But a lot of times I notice that with the students that I have, folks don't really understand what this command is doing for them. Okay. So this is a different type of command. So we already did git add and then the file name. But we have another option. I have 2 files here, and I specifically want to stage both of these files, and I want to commit them together. So instead of doing git add and doing each file name, I'm gonna do a git add dot. So remember, dot is shorthand for the current directory. So I'm doing git add dot, and that is going to actually run git add on everything here. So you want to be careful with this command because again, this is literally running git add on everything here, no matter which state that it's in at that present time. And so you want to be very intentional about that. So up until now, we have been doing git, add, and then the file name. And this is another option. So you can definitely use this, but you want to use this consciously. You want to understand what you are doing whenever that happens. So I have git add dot. So now if I do my status, you can see that I have these two changes. Both of these are staged now. If I wanted to completely undo this, which means I accidentally added files and I want to undo the tracking in this case, since they're new, I could undo the tracking by doing git restore dash dash staged and then the file name. So we looked at that earlier in the workshop. But I'm going to move forward with committing. So let's git commit dash m. And then it's not my initial commit really, because the initial commit was already done, but I'll just say I added a title or a heading and profile, heading and headshot. So now I have my commit, and then I can go ahead and do a git push. In this case, I need to push to a branch, and the branch hasn't really been set. So if I try to do a git push right now, it just says fatal. The current branch has no upstream branch. So remember, we did a git push dash u origin main when we wanted to push a repository for the first time. And this is going to be similar. In this case, I'm going to do a git push dash u origin. So origin points to my remote. It points to the GitHub URL, or the GitHub project. But instead of saying main, I'm going to say I can set a new branch called setup boilerplate. Oh, duh, they have this one right here. We can do this one as well. These do the same thing. Setup hyphen boilerplate. So this is beautiful. This is one of those hints that always is super helpful for me when it comes to working with Git, because sometimes I forget which command this is, and yeah, they actually called it out here. They said git push dash dash set upstream origin setup boilerplate. Now, mine's is different because I use dash u versus the dash dash setup stream. But what I would like to show you is that if you look into the documentation, you will notice that these actually have the same purpose. So if I go to the documentation, because this is another thing I made sure I verified recently. If you go to the documentation and I'm looking at a push command, right? Yeah. So I'm going to go to git push. There's a lot that you're looking at here, but these are basically showing you all the different options that you can provide. So this set of square brackets is one group of options. Then they have this one, they have this one. So sometimes you have these pipes, which is kind of like you can use either or. So in this case, here's one of the options, dash u or dash dash setup stream. So I could run git push dash u, or I could run git push dash dash setup stream. Those basically do the same thing. And if you go down into the documentation, you can go, I think these are sorted by the shorter flag. So where's the u? Yep, here's u. So dash u and dash dash setup stream are both linked together. So these both have the same definition. So this sets our upstream tracking. So this is basically connecting the branch we have locally with the branch that we want to push to in our upstream, which is in our case going to be our GitHub project. So this is just something I have to do for the first time when I create a new branch. because that branch doesn't exist on the repository yet. So if I want to go ahead and confirm, I can show you right here. Maybe which one was I using? Oh, here it is. Okay. Here's the project. It has only one branch, which is main right now. So even if I save you all branches, I just have main. But now I'm going to push to a branch called setup boilerplate. And it shows me that it pushed, but it also shows me something special here. It shows me a link to open a pull request. So you can actually click here to open the template to make a pull request for this. We're gonna look at pull requests right now. But you can also see that my branches page is updated now with more than one branch. I have the main and I have set up boilerplate. I have gotten questions in the past when you see your main branch isn't protected. For protection on your branches is more about making sure if you wanted to prevent anyone from accidentally pushing to that branch or deleting that branch, you can set up some protections. So it's not like a security thing. It's more so like a workflow thing. So I could, set up a like branch protection on main just to make sure that you have to do a pull request first before you make any changes. So these are things that some teams might put into place. Like when I was working on my last software team, we we couldn't even push to main. We had to merge into main, so it had to come from a pull request. So, main was the branch that all of our code was deployed from, so everything that was live was on main. So, you don't wanna, like, accidentally push broken changes or something that's not fully tested. So that's what that is for. But, our code base has been updated now. So when I go back to the main page, you'll see by default, I'm on the main branch. So I don't see any other changes I've made. But since I have recently pushed to a new branch, GitHub will typically just show me, hey, um, you have pushed some changes to this branch. And then it'll give you this option here, compare and pull request. So this option, compare and pull request, is the same thing essentially as the URL you get when you push to a branch in the terminal. So both of those are pretty much prompting you to go through and request to have your changes merged in to the main branch. So this is the pull request UI in GitHub. And in this case, there's a lot of stuff we can do here. This is my project, so I don't have to do a huge amount, but I do want to go through the process of making sure that the changes I make are separate from the live code changes and that I actually give myself an extra step in that process instead of just deploying stuff straight there. So what I can do is I can have a title here. So this will be the title of the pull request. And then inside of here, especially when you're working with teams, you can give some more intimate details as far as what types of things that you worked on. Depending on the repository, this contents can get automatically generated when you set it up because you can have templates for pull requests. You can if you all have other team members, then you can add reviewers. There's nobody really on this project, so I could add other usernames for other people that are on this project and request their review. So some people like that as a part of their workflow. I can assign it to folks as well, including myself. They also have the ability to add labels. So, for example, if this is going to be, they have some typical ones. So, I'll say this is a an enhancement. And then GitHub does have something called projects. So this is a way of doing like some Kanban style boards, a little bit of project management. So if you do have those and you're integrating with those, you can actually set up projects and tag them here. So that's some other options that you have. Those will definitely play more into those collaborative projects where you have multiple people. If you have a team and you have a review process, or if you are going to be contributing to an open source project, then some of these may be assigned automatically, or you may um, have some guidance in your contributing docs on how to configure what details they want in here, and so on and so forth. So I have, I'll just say this change adds the um, profile image and a heading, come on, but no other main content. That's just a little bit of information, but I can definitely put a lot of stuff here. In the past, for me, I would also be able to like ask questions or say, "Hey, here's one thing I wasn't sure about," because the review process, you can still make changes to your code through the review process. So, depending on what kind of team you're working on, opening a PR could be an attempt to start to get your code merged, but you can still make changes, right? So I could ask some questions like, "Hey, I wasn't really sure about this one thing. I'm, you know, opening this PR, but like I want to get some feedback on this particular area." So I now have a pull request opened, and this is basically comparing the setup boilerplate branch to the main branch. They show me the files that were changed here, so I can see, what was added. This is a new file that was added here. I can, like I said, if there's other folks here, then they can make comments and we can actually have a threaded conversation. So that's all really nice. One thing that I'm going to do, I really want to show you all that you can keep making changes to these as you go along. And a lot of times in an open source project, especially when you don't have direct access to talk to someone in real time, most of the times while you are making your changes, there's most likely going to be something that they recommend you to change in the review process. That's super normal. Um, so yeah, in that case, let's think about the fact that there's no CSS for this. It's like kind of obvious, but also, I mean, hey. So I could, even though I'm technically the person on this repository, I could say, "Hey, um the profile image is so large. Um This would be a good time to get the style sheet in as well and adjust the layout." Okay, so someone might make a comment, and now I have um, something additional to add on to my project. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back to the command line. I'm going to go back to my project here, and I'm going to add a style sheet. So link H, no, link CSS. So here's my default boilerplate for a style sheet. I'm going to use this name. So I'm going to make a new file here, call it style.css. So this one should tie directly to the same link that I have here. Let's save my HTML file, and then I'm going to do like image. Um, why you don't like me? Oh, do not use empty rule sets. Okay. Well, it won't be empty in a second. Um, let's just do like max width, um, 50%, and we're gonna see what that looks like, right? So first, before I do anything, I save this. I have my local copy of my index page here. This is literally the local copy. This is the exact copy on my computer. So refresh it, and it's kind of smaller. I want to do some stuff. So I'll just come here, go to styles, and I'm going to reduce this. 25% looks better. So let's go and change it to 25%. Right? Again, so I'm doing my local testing first. Then I'm going to do a git status. Now I made two different changes. I updated the file and I added a file. So again, this is an example where I could just do a git add on one file, leave the other one untracked. Or in this case, I am very intentionally going to run a git add dot only because I want to modify both of these files. I want to stage both of these files. Okay, so be careful with that because one of these is an untracked file and one of these is a tracked file. So by running git add dot, it didn't matter that those were in different phases. Now they both are going to be staged. So I can get commit -m, and I'll say in this case, I am adding a style sheet and reducing reducing the headshot size. Make sure, excuse me, make sure to end the message with quotes. Oh man. Okay. This is excuse me. My throat's getting so dry, so much talking. I was streaming for like what 5-6 hours earlier too. So excuse me. But I have done my commit. So now I can push. And like I said earlier, I did a -u. So I did a git push -u origin setup boilerplate. Since I did that -u, now by default, whenever I do a git push, it automatically knows where to push that information to. So now you can see if I go over to my project again, I'll refresh on my pull request here. And I can see that there are 2 commits instead of the previous 1 commit. And now there's 3 file changes instead of 2, right? So now I can see my style sheet change is here and my code is here, but this includes the link to the style sheet now. So if you, for whatever reason, because it's very common, if you do open a pull request and then you need to make changes to your code after you open a pull request, no biggie. All of that information is actually going to be able to be kept up with via the pull request until the pull request is closed or merged. Yeah, closed or merged. All right. So the next thing that I would typically see is I could go back now and say actually make a comment um to the previous thing, update it. And I'm going to comment here. Don't close it because if you close it, you're literally closing the pull request. Which means, yeah, you basically close it without doing anything. So now this is good to go as far as I'm concerned. So I'm going to go ahead and merge. There's different preferences for merge commits versus squash and merge versus rebase and merge. Squash and merge would be that they would take all the commits that I have here and it's called squashing. It squashes it down into one commit. So your change will come in as one commit. Some projects, a lot of open source projects, they may prefer the squash because with the squash, if my change took 50 commits, they don't necessarily want a whole 50 commits just for one person's change in a very big project. So squash is common. Squash is one of the things I had to do when I first started learning how to use open source, like do open source commits, and I had to do it manually from the command line. It was crazy. But now squash is an option that you can just do as a part of the commit. So we no longer have to manually do this one. So if they want you to squash it, they will usually let you know. But now squashing actually can be done by the merger. So you shouldn't have to worry about squashing. Um, like I said, you shouldn't have to squash it manually. Rebase. Rebase is basically going to take the commits that you have and put those in the normal flow of the project history. So when multiple people are working and all of their commits kind of intertwine basically as far as like timestamps essentially, um the rebase is going to reorganize all the commits on the main branch so it kind of looks like they are always there. The merge commit is just going to make a new commit to the main branch. It's going to say this is a merge commit and it'll show all of your changes as if they were added at that point in time. So it's really preferable the preference is up to like the project managers how they like to do this. But for me, for the main, I don't want to have a bunch of merge commits. I'm just going to do a rebase and merge. So rebase is basically going to say instead of me seeing like here if I go to my main and I go to this branch only has one commit. So here after initial commit, it's going to show my other commits that I did on my other branch as if they were done to this branch initially. It's not you're not going to really notice that it was a merge. Oh, where'd it go? Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and just rebase and merge. And if I want to, I can comment, but I'm just going to rebase and merge. And here's my confirm. So now my setup boilerplate code got merged with my main. If you had any issues in that weren't easy to resolve between those two, then you would get some errors that will tell you about needing to update your code. But for this, now my main has 3 commits. So you can see even though originally I had those 2 commits were on a different branch, now they just show in this workflow. Um excuse me. All right. So, those I think let me see. I want to go to forks next and wrap up with forks, but I think we did most of the other things I wanted to cover. Okay, so now let's go to forking because that'll be the last thing. So a fork also extends from this process that we just worked on. So in the case of forking, forking is something that you do when you don't have direct access to the project. Okay. So Everything I've been doing now is my own personal project. I have full access to it. And even if I was added as a collaborator onto the project, in your project settings, if you say have like a team project, maybe you're working on a team project, you're working on something, you everybody can be collaborators. So you can add collaborators to your project. And in that case, that would give those individuals direct access to push and pull code directly on the project. Now, when it comes to open source projects, typically that is not going to happen. If you're not a project maintainer, you're not going to have access to the repository. And so, what you want to do is going to be based on the process of forking. So, insert my open source project of the month slash of my life right now, which is Lasagna Love. And Lasagna Love, if you're not familiar, Lasagna Love is basically a platform that allows anybody who needs a meal to request a lasagna, and a local volunteer will bake them a lasagna and bring it to them. So it's a really awesome project. And recently, actually this year, there has been a project that has been designed in order to relaunch their portal. So right now, their portal is on a tech stack that's not easy to maintain anymore. It's not really it's like a older technology. Excuse me. And so not only did they want to relaunch the portal, but they also wanted to do this as an open source project. So insert Project Ricotta and then the Bechamel API. So Project Ricotta is actually the front end for the portal, and Bechamel API is the back end. I might already have a fork of Project Ricotta, so I think I'm going to fork Bechamel API today. But again, this is a ID. This is a process where I am looking to make a contribution to this project. And since I'm contributing to this project, I am basically going to have to fork in order to make some changes. So a fork is when you make your own copy, an exact copy that exists on your profile. And that is a copy that you have direct access to. Okay. And then you would facilitate the process of integrating that code by going through the pull request process, like we just saw. Let me see. Oh, I'm like super late seeing this question pop up, but it says, is this a part of my 100 days of code? This is not 100 days of code for me. This is a teaching workshop, of course, if you are joining it, but my 100 days of code was over in September, I think. August or September, something like that. But we are doing the Hacktoberfest and open source content. So I am teaching open source materials all month on metadevgirl.com. So um yeah, so let's go over to Bechamel because I'm pretty sure I already have a fork of Project Ricotta. So I'm gonna go over here to the back end. So when you want to fork a repository, literally the first thing you do, come to the actual page for that project, and you will see the fork option. So you can click fork, and it's going to automatically bring the name in for you, all the description and everything. Recently, we have this option to copy only a specific branch. I'm not going to copy just that one branch because sometimes there's other branches that has information I need. So I want the whole repo. Excuse me. So I am unchecking that option, and now I'm going to create a fork. Excuse me. Okay. So I am here now. So the page that it redirects me to is my fork. So this basically just took an exact copy of the project and created it on my account, but you'll notice it is linked to that repository. So it shows me that this is forked from, and it shows me the specific repository where the fork is coming from. Oh, they wrote this in Go. Interesting. I could learn some Go. Um, yeah, so now I have this copy. So here's what I'm going to do. So I am not cloning the Bechamel API directly. I am cloning my fork. I have to make sure that I copy SSH because I have SSH, but you can copy HTTPS. So I'm copying my URL. Go back to my terminal. And let's see. I have like a little bit of a convention in how I do stuff. So this is just personal. Anything that's all caps, because this is a repos folder. So like I want to know the difference easily if something is a repository or if it's like just a directory that holds a bunch of other repositories. So it's personal. Um, Anything that's all caps, excuse me, all caps basically means that's not a Git repository. That's just an organizational folder. So I'm going to put this inside of the open source folder. So if you just kind of wondering, that's just a way that I personally do things. So for example, I'm working on this project. I was live streaming this earlier, which is a theme for the Ghost CMS, which I use for my website. Um, so I know all caps, that's not the Ghost repo because the project folder is literally called Ghost. That is a big directory that contains multiple projects. So that's just my own convention. So for Lasagna Love, I'm going to actually make a directory. Lasagna Love, I'm going to make it all caps. So I know this is not a repo. This is a folder that actually has other repos in it. And so now I can CD into the Lasagna Love folder. And there's nothing in here right now. But what I'm going to do is go ahead and clone this here. So notice it's coming from my account, not the Lasagna Love account. Okay, so here we are. Okay, so now I have a copy of my fork. I have that local, so I can make changes to that. Now, one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pay attention and see, because this is open source type of stuff now, right? So there should be a contributing, some type of contributing guidelines. They actually point us back to the Project Ricotta for contributor guidelines. Um, and then development.md for how to contribute as well. So the main instructions for contributing in this case live over here on this page. So there's more information about the rules. This is where they would tell you like, hey, name your branches this way. They'll talk more about just kind of like how you go through that process. So for example, in this case, it says for making contributions, if you are from outside the project, then you need to fork and send a PR. But members of the project should create named branches. So members of the project. So this is if I, as a member of the project, was going to contribute directly, then I would create a branch that has my name in front of it so that it's easy to keep track of whose branches are whose. What else do they say? Oh, they also talk about the development file here for setting everything up and then opening the pull request with a clear description of your changes. Some projects will literally say you have to put X, Y, and Z like in your contribution or in your pull request description, or they'll have a template. So they'll automatically pre-fill the areas so you can know exactly what you need. Then they do require you to have unit tests that validate your changes, use concise comments, and then have examples if necessary in your pull request as well. Um, yeah, so this is one that's pretty straightforward. However, contributing guidelines can get very in depth. They can even branch out into their own documentation pages. So, like I was working on Ghost CMS earlier, and if I go to their documentation, um, they actually have a full a full guide here. So not just the contributing.md, but they have a full guide here. GitHub.com/try ghost. So this is the repository for the code for the CMS. And in this case, you can see it's a lot more detailed. They have pictures and commands all set up and stuff like that. But they also, in this case, they point you to the contributor guide. So they point you to the documentation instead of pointing you to a markdown file. So it just depends on the project, how big that project may be, which process they go through. But a project should definitely give you contributing guidelines. All right, so I'm just looking to see if there's anything I have to do with my branches. They don't really say, so I am going to create my branch with a name. But here's the further details into the contributing for the back end. And so they have like the installation commands so that I can see how to set this up, how to run, how to use Docker, how to run the test. Right? So they have the full workflow for me. So this is literally something I'm going to be going through as I'm live streaming for the rest of the month, but just kind of want to show you a little bit of preview of what that looks like. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you as well what my next step would be, and you can kind of extrapolate from there how it would go based on what we've seen so far. So I have a clone of the fork. So I forked the repository that I want to contribute to. I cloned my fork. So then my next steps would be to go ahead and get to work on my project. So I can go here and open it up in Visual Studio Code. And you can see, of course, it has all of this other information here already. Of course, the development.md file is here already as well. So I don't have to look on GitHub. That's one of the reasons why the markdown files, the contributing markdown files are typically inside the projects. It's easy, just have everything I need right there. What I am going to do is go into the terminal. And again, so in VS Code, your terminal should automatically open inside of your project folder. So I can do a git branch. No, sorry. Git checkout dash B. So this is another way that I can name the branches. They have a preference towards putting name spacing with so put your name in front of whatever you're working on. So in this case, I could do a git checkout dash B and say whatever my new feature is going to be. Don't call it new feature, but that's just an example. So, literally exactly how I name it, even with the forward slash being a part of it, it's all one string essentially. So this is what my branch is going to be known as. So now I don't want to be working directly on dev. I want to be working on a branch, and that way I can actually go and do a pull request. So in this case, when I do a pull request, I will be attempting to um, set a pull request that is merging my branch into their dev branch. So that would be a similar process as what we saw. The pull requests pretty much still work the same as far as setting them up if you're setting them up for different repositories. So I want to see if I do have the, I think I have Project Ricotta already. If I do, I probably cloned it all the way back in April. Let's see, May, April or March. Yeah, here it is. This one is my clone for Project Ricotta. It's very far behind. So in this case, since my fork is behind, I'm going to hit sync fork and update this branch so that my dev branch is in sync with the fork. So that's a good way to make sure. So you have to do that periodically. Um but yeah, if I want to go here and look at a previous pull request, I can look at, get rid of the open filter. We don't have it. I know we got pull requests in here. There's no pull requests. That don't seem right. Oh, it's probably the branch I'm on. Oh, I'm looking at my own project. Is that why? Okay, I was about to say that does not sound right. Okay, here's a pull request. I just wanted to come here because I can look at some closed requests. And here is one that was, let me see. I think Colin is on the project. I just want to look at some comparisons. Yeah, so here you can see um the branch. You basically can when you do your pull request, you can compare the branches, choose which branches you want to pull in. You can pull branches that are from the exact from your fork or from inside of the project as well. I was hoping, let's go back to the beginning, because I know a lot of these people have, here we go. Here's a good example. So in this case, this pull request is requesting for the changes from this fork with the branch name here to be merged into the Lasagna Love portal on the dev branch. So you can definitely find more information as well about the processes when you are integrating with an open source project just by taking a look through their pull requests and seeing how things have gone previously. And then last but not least, you are typically going to want to look in the issues for a particular project if you're interested in contributing to it. So, issues is like the first place you can go because a lot of times issues are either going to be telling you what people are interested in seeing, what kind of bugs might be in the system, right? So they are using some of those tags like we saw. So enhancement tags, so these are new features, documentation, and bugs. So these are some issues that may still need help. And then you can go into authenticated user homepage flow. You can go into a specific issue and you can see more details about it, but then you could also see um if there's any comments there, if someone's already assigned to it, right? Because you don't want to take over or try to jump in on an issue that's already being assigned to someone. So if you want to make a contribution, that's one of the first places you want to look. So for me, I'm like I said, for the foreseeable future, I do want to contribute to Lasagna Love for Hacktoberfest. I mean, I've been working with this project anyway, so this is the main project I'm focused on besides doing a couple projects I have personally that I want to that I want to make open source. So yeah, I will be working on this like in real time. So I might even end up picking up this ticket right here. But I'm gonna go and check out what type of items are actually in the pipeline before I do go ahead and choose a ticket. But hopefully that kind of info is helpful as well. And so, what I'll be doing as a follow up, again, I will go ahead and update the web page that we have for the workshop. I'll put more resources here. So, I will go ahead and put a bunch of the different commands that we talked about. And that way you can like just easily copy and paste them out of the project. And then you can also be on the lookout for the Git crash course. So, in the crash course, I am going to assume that you've already been through this material, but what I'll be doing, that is not going to be live. That's just going to be an on-demand class that you can find. But the crash course for Git, it will have more details around a lot of the commands that we talked about, some alternate versions of the commands, and how you can work with those. So, we talked about quite a few, but there's still plenty more to explore. And I do encourage you, if you are watching wherever you're watching from, I live stream on Twitch and YouTube. And I also put all of my content here on metadevgirl.com. The website is in the soft launch phase right now, so there's still a lot more that I'm pushing into the website. But if you want to see more workshops like this, if you want to see more courses from me, or if you want to come to a live stream and work on a project, see what my workflow is like, ask me questions and things like that. I'm happy to have you. So please do follow. You can follow on Twitch, you can follow on YouTube. Or you can also come over and become a member on the site. You can join for free and get access to pretty much 99% of everything that's on the site. So I really appreciate it. I hope that this has been helpful for you. Again, even if you're watching the recording and you have any questions, go ahead and leave questions in the comment section so that I can follow up and give you all some more guidance there. And let me know, what other type of workshops do you want to see? So I am excited, happy to have been able to spend this time together, and I look forward to seeing you in the next workshop.